49ers Cutback Podcast time. Welcome to the show. Hope everyone had a great Merry Christmas. And now it is time to get back into 49ers talk. 49ers versus the Titans officially over from last week. However, the remnants are still floating through the air. That is 49ers Twitter and 49ers land.
I'm stunned, man. I'm absolutely stunned. It's been a heavy dose of Titans, right, where I'm at. But at the end of the day, the 49ers is where my heart is. And every time I log onto Twitter, and there's something. There's nonsense being thrown about. There's people who can't seem to let certain things go, and other people who want to focus on very, very weird things and details and stuff that doesn't really impact the 49ers right now. And in all honesty, a lot of people want to indulge in hypotheticals, and because it's almost as if they'd rather worry about hypothetical scenarios that can't happen, won't happen, will never be the case for the 2021 season, rather than focus on the fact that the Niners are currently still positioned very well in the playoff hunt and control their own destiny and just need to win football games. But look, we got lots of things to talk about, tons of stuff to get into, and I'm sure we're going to check a lot of those boxes along the way.
Yeah, definitely. We got some cool topics to get into. We got some things that we got to get to establish. And some of these games that happened over the weekend have changed the way that the playoffs are currently constituted. The Minnesota Vikings did lose to the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are now the leaders in the NFC West, which changes some things that we're going to get into a little bit more when we get into our playoff positioning portion of the show. But also, it just changed, who is behind the 49ers. Now, the Eagles are the team that is the 7th seed currently. If the Saints win tonight, it could definitely change everything. But we're going to see how that plays out. But right now, the 49ers still have a tiebreaker over the Philadelphia Eagles. So things are changing in a quick way. But one thing that is not changing, Alex, is the way that PFF shows love to Jaquiskii Tartt, because they show him no love. Tartt came out last week and said, basically called him out on it. Well, it did not change the grading factors for PFF, as Jaquiskii Tartt once again does not show up on the top 5 49ers defensive performers, even though to me, and I think to you as well, he flashed all over the field and had himself one heck of a football game.
And it was one of those things where you and I both got done as we were getting prepped for the reaction show. We were talking, and it's like, dude, is it just me, or did Tartt just have like his best game of the year? Like, it felt like his best game of the season. He was all over the place, making tackles, bringing guys down, tackles for loss, breaking up passes, almost having a couple pick opportunities. I mean, it felt like Jaquiskii Tartt's impact was just next level all game long. Like, the eye test dictated, right? He was easily one of the best defenders out on the football field, if not the best. And we joked a little bit in the reaction show that, they're going to have to, right? Like, he has to be one of the best graded out players for the 49ers defense. I mean, how could they not? And apparently the algorithm is just really, it's a bunch of numbers, and then it spits out F Jaquiskii Tartt at the end, because they want to do nothing at all whatsoever with giving this man or showing him any sort of appreciation, validation, impact. And this is the problem with PFF grades, right? Like, it's one of those things where it's all numbers based, it's all stats based. There's not a whole lot of taking into account scheme, what the game plan is, what you're trying to do defensively, and what a guy's role is in that scheme and in that system for that given night, even per se. And this is why you have to try and take those numbers with a grain of salt.
Yeah, this is one of the issues I have with PFF. I think that PFF can't be your, the way you look at a game played and who's the best players in totality. Some of it you can put it as like a piece of it, but not the whole thing, because when it comes down to it, you got to let the eye test, you got to let what you actually see on the field be your guide, because players like Jaquiskii Tartt will get left out. Jaquiskii Tartt had a great game on Thursday night. He was flying all over the field. He was making key tackles, big time plays, and he was a flashing. And a lot of times when players flash, they catch your eye, and he was doing that in a big way. I thought he had a very good football game. And I think that this is why you can't let, PFF be your guide into all the numbers and why these are the top performers. Because if you do, you're going to go out and you're going to think that the top 5 performers in this football game were 4 defensive linemen and Jimmie Ward. And you can't consistently do that. And I think that this is just something that we have to get used to as people that look at the grades, and just realize that, let your eyes be the guide. Don't let the PFF scores guide you and tell you who are the players and who are the best performers and who aren't.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, this is the eye test has to play into it to an extent. It can't just be numbers. It can't just be built around that. It has to be built on a little bit of both, right? Both things have to play a role in impacting, not necessarily impacting, but understanding what a team's doing and who's playing well and who's not, and why certain guys are having success. They graded Eric Armstead as one of the bottom 3 performers for the 49ers. If you watch that football game, Eric Armstead and Nick Bosa are operating on the left side of the line, or excuse me, the right side of the line, where their strengths are for most of the game, and eating up double teams. Bosa's being chipped by, at one point, it looked like 3 guys. And even when Bosa would flip sides, they would motion the tight end over just to chip him. And they were making sure that they always got an extra body on Nick Bosa. And when you got that much attention being paid to 2 players on a football field, that's going to open up avenues for these other guys to attack. And, DJ Jones, Jordan Willis, and Charles Omenihu, all were the 3 highest defensive graded players. After that, it was Jimmie Ward, all scoring in the 80s and the 70s for their grade. It's almost like, Eric Armstead and Nick Bosa eating up double teams all night and not really getting a whole lot of extra penetration or necessarily getting all the pressures in the world, was creating one-on-one opportunities that these guys were consistently winning and therefore playing at a high level.
100%. They were doing the dirty work. They were the ones that were getting the dirty work done, and they were providing opportunities for these other players to make big-time plays. And that was what it was really helping, these other guys grade very high in PFF's grades. But that was the game plan going in, was that they put Nick Bosa and Armstead on the same side of the field for a reason. They do that because they know that's going to garner all the attention. They're going to have the one-on-one matchups opposite of them, and they were trying to put those other guys in those opportunities to do so. So that's why you didn't see Bosa switch over very much, where you would normally think him going on the other side would have been a key matchup they were looking to take advantage of. But they had a certain game plan they were going in with, and for the most part, it worked. They held the Tennessee Titans to 20 points in this football game. That should be enough to win the game. The defensive game plan was set. It was sound. And I thought that Eric Armstead and Nick Bosa played very well. They should have been, they should be considered as 2 of the better performers in the football game. However, they will not be because PFF's grades said they weren't, which is another reason I take PFF grades kind of with a grain of salt.
That's all you can do, man. When you got guys eating up that much attention, not exceeding ground. I mean, the fact that the run game wasn't getting going and those 2 were eating up double teams on every play, and, other guys were being able to single left, your linebackers able to come up and fly up, that should tell you everything you need to know. The Tennessee Titans rely on the run game. They weren't able to get the run game going. I credit that a lot to Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead being able to eat up those double teams, not let them get up to linebacker. And then you tip your hat to DJ Jones, who has shown consistently, if teams are going to put him on an island by himself, he's going to win. So they rolled the dice. Tennessee rolled the dice with that, and they lost in that regard, in that respect. And the 49ers, basically forced their hand and said, if you're going to beat us, you're going to have to beat us going this direction against these guys, and they couldn't do it in the run game at the very least. They ended up actually, obviously winning the football game. But if you're the 49ers, you're taking certain risks and you're taking certain chances. And in that respect, you won, and you just lost on the other side late in the football game. But in all honesty, the defense gave up 13. You gave up 13 true points. 7 of those comes off a turnover that puts you in prime field position, 4 points. So I really have nothing negative to say about the defense. The defense did exactly what they needed to do to come out of Tennessee on a short week with a win. Your offense didn't as much. And part of that was Jimmie, right? Jimmie struggled. And there was an accidental Ant by John Lynch. He's saying it's accidental. A lot of people are saying that it's not accidental, Ant. He said he was at church. There was a tweet that went out by a 49ers fan who said, just leave Jimmie essentially in Tennessee. Just leave him there. Don't bring him back with the team. Just you can just stay there. And on John Lynch's profile, it was the top thing there because it was the most recent thing that had happened, and it was a like. And as soon as people saw it, they screenshotted it in. It got out there. He got out of church, checks his Twitter, and it's like, oh God, oh no, what has happened here? And he's coming out and standing by his quarterback. Accident, Ant? More to it than that? Or people just blowing this out of proportion because they want this to be reality. They want this to be the truth.
I don't care. I honestly don't care. I think that they're making something huge on Twitter out of this story. Who cares if he liked a tweet? Who cares if he accidentally liked it? It doesn't matter. Is it going to have any effect to what happens to Jimmie Garoppolo on the football field or during the offseason? Absolutely not. Everyone already knows where Jimmie Garoppolo sits with this football team. Jimmie Garoppolo is the starting quarterback through the regular season, through the playoffs. however long that lasts, and then next year it's going to be Trey Lance. I mean, I don't get why this is such a big story. Everyone's latching onto a Twitter like. This is the problem with 49ers Twitter media. Is they latch onto it and they try to make some big story out of this because it's going to garner clicks. Who cares? Who cares if John Lynch likes this or not? I almost kind of hope he did. Just do it. Who cares? I mean, just do your own thing. I do think it was accidental. I don't know for sure though. But in the end, I saw the story and I read it and I carried on living my life because I honestly just didn't care.
At the end of the day, it truly doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter what John Lynch thinks right now. This is the decision that's been made, right? This is that Jimmie is your guy in 2021. He's bridging you to 2022 when Trey Lance can eventually take over and you can move off of that salary. So, I mean, for all the talking heads, right, who keep talking about trade value, Ant, this is trade value, trade value, trade value, trade value. Does a liking a tweet by your general manager of the guy who wanted to roll with said quarterback, is that good for trade value in theory? Is that what's best for business? No, of course not. So this is a non-story. It's most likely an accident, if at best an accident, and at worst a moment of weakness for John Lynch where he's frustrated after a loss, hits the like button and is like, you know what, I probably shouldn't do that, and unlikes it. This is a non-story. I don't care. But this is what happens, right? This is what these Twitter heads do. This is what these media members do. These guys who talk 49ers football and stir up controversy on Twitter, and they'll do all of this, right? Say all of this about Jimmie, be this frustrated, and then turn around and talk about how Matt Stafford, after throwing 3 picks in the first half, is still a top 10 quarterback. He's just a top 10 quarterback, a guy who's got no playoff wins in his career, who couldn't take the Lions anywhere, and didn't do anything with the Lions, came over to the Rams, and yes, it was a promising start, and what an abysmal middle of the road it was for the Rams. And the only reason right now they are sitting in an NFC West lead right now is because of the Vikings' incompetence as a football team and the Arizona Cardinals reverting into the Arizona Cardinals and blowing things late in the season because they just don't want to have success. They'd rather just throw and piss it all away, despite, getting themselves out to an incredible start to the season. I don't care. I don't care about this. I don't care about the people talking about this. If this is a story to you, then you really don't understand this team. You don't understand football, and you have nothing else to talk about, which is why you're clamoring for this story and why it's like the thing you couldn't stop talking about the day before Christmas. Like you just had to get on and let people know, hey, this happened. And see, even John Lynch agrees with me. Jimmie's the worst.
Yeah, it was interesting. It definitely was. I mean, Twitter blew up in a big way about this accidental like. I don't know about you, Alex, but I have definitely accidentally liked things in my time scrolling over, accidentally clicked the button, hit it. And in the same regard, I didn't care then and I don't care now. So yeah, it really doesn't matter what.
There's times where I accidentally scroll and like something and then don't even care enough to go back and unlike the tweet.
Right?
Yeah. It's like, whatever, who cares?
Yeah, John Lynch had to put out the statement and put out whatever Twitter fires there were. Just this is a complete nothing for me. I just really don't care.
I don't blame you at all whatsoever. It's also not a surprise that this happened. I mean, as soon as the Niners lose a football game, it's red alert, warning, danger. This team sucks again. It's literally, it feels like the fan base is Rob Schneider and the Waterboy. Oh no, we suck again.
Oh yeah, you win 5 of 6, but you lost your last one. You're in trouble. I mean, that's just how it is. That's the world we live in. Jimmie, you had 8 great games, but you know what? This revealed you were absolute trash. If people want to say Jimmie, I know we're not going to get to Jimmie Garoppolo yet, but if people want to say that Jimmie Garoppolo didn't play well in this game, that he played a garbage game, that's okay. But reverting all the way to I knew all along that Jimmie Garoppolo was trash, you're ignoring the fact that he played well for 8 games, which means you're not being unbiased. Be unbiased about this. Say for a fact Jimmie Garoppolo played well in 8 games, but he's had mistakes. He had mistakes against Seattle. He had mistakes, against the Tennessee Titans. It's okay to be that way. It's okay to say when he's good and when he's bad. It doesn't have to be he's either the greatest thing since sliced bread or absolute trash. You don't have to have it both ways. You can have it right. You can have it a little bit in the middle somewhere, and that's okay. But one Jimmie that got slammed in the football game was Jimmie Ward. And the receiver that was pretty much doing all the B stuff over there was AJ Brown, Alex, and AJ Brown had some thoughts on why he needed to slam Jimmie Ward in that football game.
And they were some interesting thoughts. He talked about how, I know 49ers fans think it's PI, but you see, he initiated contact. So therefore, it's okay for him to slam Jimmie Ward. Also, Jimmie Ward was in his path, right? He was in his path. And, he can't just let Jimmie Ward be in his path. He has to be able to get to his spot. My guy, you are correct that a guy can't prevent you from getting to your spot. That is accurate. However, if the guy is standing already in the line of the path that you want to take to get to your spot, you have no right as an offensive player, just like a defensive player has absolutely no right to get you off of that spot. That's not how this works. You don't get to the path that you want by any means necessary. He just can't prevent you from getting to your spot by any means necessary, right? It's a two-way street. So if the defender can't do it, you sure as sugar cannot do it, AJ Brown. It is a terrible excuse, and it is the antithesis of the Cooper Kupp. The Cooper Kupp explanation a few weeks ago of why he was open on one of his routes, where he went very in-depth, very analytical about the coverage. AJ Brown was basically like, I'm not talking about this. He was in my way. I got rid of him, which, listen, as a guy who loves physical play, I absolutely love the tone that he's trying to set and the consistency he's bringing. However, AJ Brown, it was pass interference. I know it's pass interference. My grandparents know it was pass interference. And my girlfriend, who is not a 49ers fan, my fiance, who is not a 49ers fan, but knows football, knows that it was pass interference. We all know that it was pass interference, my guy. Just own it, Hey, it's a physical game. I was just being physical. And, they didn't call nothing, so we'll take it. Like, at the end of the day, that's what it is. Trying to explain it away as he was in my path and he doesn't have a right to be in my path and therefore I'm justified in literally throwing a man to the ground is just it's a pretty bad excuse, Ant. It's pretty bad.
Well, I think that if he would have came out and he just said, "Hey, man, this is football. Football's a physical game," because if they're not going to call it, then it's not a penalty. It's that simple. They have to call it. My only question is if Jimmie Ward would have done the same thing to AJ Brown, would it have been called defensive pass interference? 100% it would have been. So I think there needs to be the same rules for the defensive player as there's the offensive player. But we're living in a world and in a league where they want these offensive players to be able to kind of move with impunity and be able to do what they want because they want the numbers up on the scoreboard. What they didn't want from that Thursday night football game was for the 49ers to win the game 13-3 or something of that nature. They wanted the Tennessee Titans to be able to score points. They wanted the 49ers to score points. Because scoring points especially in primetime football games is something the NFL is after. That's what's going to get eyes on the game. That's what's going to get fantasy, people involved in what's going on. That's what's going to get prop bettors involved in what's going on. That is big business for the NFL. What's not big business for the NFL is 10-0 halftime leads. So you have to have certain things go certain ways, and they've kind of pushed the rules to go this way where offensive players are able to do what they want and defensive players not so much. What I'd like to see from the 49ers players is when they realize that is going on to go ahead and take advantage of the same things that AJ Brown is doing. Deebo Samuel, go get physical. George Kittle, go get physical. Use your physical ability in those situations. Deebo Samuel did. On the long catch that he makes, when he gets to the top of his stem at the top of the route, Alex, he pushes off and creates separation and catches the ball and has a big run. So if the refs are going to call it that way, take advantage of it. Some of this goes down to knowing what refs you're going against and knowing what you can get away with. AJ Brown knew, he saw it, he took advantage of it, and it worked out for the Tennessee Titans. 49ers got to find a way to make a way to take advantage of the same way.
1,000%. I mean, you can't, right? You can cry over spilled milk all you want, but at the end of the day, the milk spilled for a reason. Go figure out why. And then, okay, number one, how can we not let it happen again? But number two, how can we try and replicate the same things, right? How can we duplicate this so that we can take advantage of it? So it's not our milk that's spilling, it's someone else's. And that's what you got to do. You have to take advantage of the situations. You have to look at how officials are calling it, what they're seeing, what they're doing, what they're not doing. And then once you figure it out, right, go capitalize yourself, make it the thing for you. That's what was so funny, right? We talked about this during the Vikings game, post game, where they were crying about how the Niners are always holding. They're always holding. That's all they do. They hold every play, yada, yada, yada. They don't call anything. As long as they don't call anything, they're going to keep doing it. Zimmer, you're right. As long as it's not going to be called, whatever it is that you're not liking is going to keep getting done. And look, the Niners have known for a long time that holdings aren't being called because look at their D-line. And their D-line gets held on pretty much every play. So what is the offensive line doing? And they're doing some of these same tactics and things that are being done to them. And Tom Compton has been consistently one of the better performers each and every week, despite everyone calling him Trash Compton to start the season. And all of us, I mean, right here on the podcast, being absolutely surprised when he wasn't one of the initial 53 that was cut from his roster. Kyle Shanahan had a good idea in mind of what he was going to do with Tom Compton, and Tom Compton has taken advantage of the rules that are currently in place and to continue to have quality games for the 49ers. It's just unfortunate that we had the Jimmie situation happen because that was a big third down in which he was blanking. He wasn't going to be open. Jimmie Ward had that route snuffed out. He knew exactly where he was going and what he was trying to do. And A.J. Brown just removed him from the equation for a big conversion.
Yeah, I mean, that unfortunately is what's going to happen in this game. It's going to be plays like that. You've got to be able to overcome those plays, and that's one of the things the 49ers struggle with a little bit in defense as far as getting off the field on third down. That's been a hot topic all week about the 49ers not being able to get off the field on third down. Kyle Shanahan brought up not being able to get off the field on third down. 49ers were one of the best in the league on, first down, and then one of the worst in the league on third down. Part of that was the coverage that they were running in this football game. They were allowing these guys to catch the ball underneath, trying to rally and make tackles. But these guys were finding holes in the zone, and if Ryan Tannehill had the time, he was getting the ball there in time. It wasn't a tremendous performance for Ryan Tannehill. It was a tremendous performance by A.J. Brown, and it was somewhat of a, let's protect these corners, let's protect the secondary from this Titans football team. Ultimately, this is not a recipe that you can win consistently. But then again, I'm sitting here and I'm complaining about it, and I'm looking back and they only scored 20 points. The 49ers should have scored more points in this football game. The 49ers should have, been able to win this football game, but they didn't execute when they needed to. Jimmy Garoppolo with the two big interceptions, the missed throw to Kyle Juszczyk, which are the three big misses. If he doesn't have those three misses in this football game, not only is everyone not talking about Jimmy Garoppolo being trash, but they're talking about Jimmy Garoppolo stacking another tremendous performance on top of what he's already done the previous 8 weeks. That's how quick it is for an NFL quarterback. You are measured by your latest performance. You are measured by the mistakes that you make. And he made some mistakes in the game, and it cost the 49ers a football game. And I think that, he's going to wear it. He knows that he's going to have to wear it, and he's going to have to move forward. The only way he can move forward now is and make everyone somewhat forget, because people are just not going to forget when it comes to Jimmy Garoppolo. But he has to go out and beat the Houston Texans on Sunday.
Yeah, you have to do that. And luckily you're that much closer to getting potentially Elijah Mitchell back and healthy and being able to have that run game to kind of lean on a little bit so that Jimmy doesn't have to go out there and be the guy to necessarily win it for you at all times, at all costs, but he has to get back to the form of Jimmy Garoppolo we saw the previous 8 games, not the one that we just saw from him. And even at that, like after the game, we were very down on Jimmy, and rightfully so. The mistakes were crucial. The missed throw to Juszczyk, a couple of the other missed throws that he had where he just missed guys wide, Brandon Ayuk underneath, that would have been a big conversion on a fourth down. And then obviously the 2 interceptions, which were just bad throws. But Jimmy was still 26 of 35 for 322 yards. I mean, he still dealt a very good football game, threw and completed a lot of passes, 9.2 average yard per completion to Ryan Tannehill, 7.2 and 1 measly touchdown on 22 of 29 passing for 209 yards. I mean, it's not like Ryan Tannehill went out and slung to this football. It's not what happened. The Titans just didn't make mistakes, and the Niners offense and Jimmy Garoppolo did. That's why they come out of this with the football game. The Niners shooting themselves in the foot, special teams as well doing the same thing, is why they lost this football game. You can put it on Jimmy, and you should put it on Jimmy, and Jimmy's going to put it on Jimmy as well as this team is, although the post-game pressers were very, very telling of this football team. Despite Jimmy Garoppolo's mistakes, there wasn't a lot of guys saying, hey, Jimmy's got to – we got to expect more from Jimmy. And Jimmy didn't go into that presser and put it all completely on him. And he did to own up for his things. But he said, we're better than this. We all top to bottom are better than this. Because this team is looking at this game and going, we had a chance to win it despite those mistakes. And we all can do just a little bit more, right, to find a way to come out of this. But Jimmy's going to go back to the drawing board. This team's going to go back to the drawing board. And I have no doubts in my mind that we are going to course correct this. I mean, there's no part of me that thinks we're not going to course correct this going into this Texans game this week. This team is too talented for that.
And Jimmy took some heat, Alex, for his comments after the game. There are people that are saying he's not taking, enough of the blame, for losing that football game. I think sometimes people take what players say to the media as gospel of how they're reacting in the locker room to the players. I guarantee you, Jimmy Garoppolo went into that locker room and told the players, "Hey, this is on me. This is my fault. This is, I should have played better. I shouldn't have made these mistakes. Juice, I shouldn't have missed you." But those are things that happen in the locker room a lot of times. And when you're going out to talk to the media, you're going out with a unified message about how you want to approach, this conversation. And a lot of times people see it as, oh, this is gospel. This is how, Jimmy Garoppolo feels. It's the same way that they'll find a snapshot of him on the sidelines laughing during a certain situation and say like, oh, he didn't care that he threw interceptions. That's not what the case is. You know what the case is? You have to put those interceptions behind you. You can't constantly be thinking about them. You have to have a short memory, and you have to go out there and get after it. This is still a football game, and if you start getting tense because you are making mistakes, you're going to be prone to make more mistakes. You have to go out there loose. Joking and stuff on the sideline has nothing to do with it. They know how serious Jimmy Garoppolo takes his performances. They know that when he was missing, he was upset with himself. I think that sometimes it's completely overblown, his body language, his reactions to things. I think people need to understand Jimmy Garoppolo 100% understands what is needed of him, and he knows he underperformed this team. I guarantee he told them, or they wouldn't follow him. Leaders are only followed because they put forth a leader effort and a leader attitude. If he was not putting that forth, then they would not treat him as a leader. They would not follow him the way that they do. So whatever he says to the media is completely calculated. He learned the Patriot way. He knows what's going on. And one thing he's just not going to ever do is say exactly what everyone wants him to say.
Nor should he, Ant, because he doesn't owe anyone the answer to something they want to hear. And also, if you want a specific answer, right, ask better questions. I listened to some of that press conference and then saw some of the comments afterwards. I didn't hear a single person say, do you feel like this is completely on you tonight, that those two mistakes cost your team the football game? No one asked that question. That question wasn't asked in that way, specifically putting the onus on him to give an answer. So you want a specific answer, right? Ask a specific question. If you're not going to ask a specific question and you're just going to ask a broad question about the team's performance overall, then expect the team answer, right? Expect it to be focused on the team and not myself. Because this is not a team built with selfish identities and selfish players who only think about themselves and their performance and what they're doing on the football field. This is a team that is consistently, the message has been, right, we have the horses right here, right? We have the horses, we have the guys right here to get this done. So it's always going to be about how the team is doing well, or the team could be better, or the team could do more, because that's where their focus is, and the team.
Yeah, even George Kittle said the biggest players didn't make, the plays that they needed to make when they needed to make them. I think that's the attitude that you have to go and look at. And, this team is going to have to make those big-time plays, and those players that he's referring to are going to have to make big-time plays if the 49ers are going to continue to be in the playoff positioning and be able to make the playoffs. With all the things that happened on Sunday, and, of course, we're waiting to see what happens tonight with the New Orleans Saints, we're going to have a better idea of how the 49ers stack up in the playoff positioning. However, the 49ers are still sitting in a good position. A 3-team trade is the one looming thing, Alex, that would prevent the 49ers from making the playoffs, it appears, and that would be a 49ers, Philadelphia Eagles, New Orleans Saints tie, which would put the 49ers out in tiebreakers. Other than that, the 49ers own tiebreakers almost on every team that is right behind them, except the New Orleans Saints. Washington football team getting absolutely drubbed by the Dallas Cowboys means the 49ers only have to worry about the Saints, and if the Saints fall tonight, then the 49ers are sitting in a pretty position moving forward. But how do you see this playoff going? Are you excited about the 49ers playoff potential, or are you worried that this 3-team tie could come back to bite the 49ers in the butt?
No, for one reason and one reason only, is you have very suspect quarterback play from the Saints and the Eagles. But the Saints specifically, even when it's their starting player, right? Even when it's Taysom Hill. I get it, but they beat Tampa Bay. The Saints have had Tampa Bay's number in the regular season for the past few years. Since Tom Brady arrived, the Saints have taken care of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the regular season.
It's like the Seahawks with the 49ers.
Correct. It's just a reality, right? It's just something that's happened. The quarterback play has been suspect everywhere else, and the team's been suspect everywhere else. Now, I expect them to have a fairly decent performance tonight, and they could pull out a win, but I don't expect them to. And for all the people that are on the Jalen Hurts is playing phenomenal train, I don't know what games you're watching. I don't know what you're seeing out of this guy, but he is not playing good football. He is really not. It's the defense that's doing a heavy amount of lifting for the Philadelphia Eagles, and what a shock. A team that we covered over the season in week 2, and the biggest, credit and kudos we had to give that team was the defense and the front being a problem, and the defense being a problem. And if their linebacker play stepped up, that, with Darius Slay on the back end, you had a really solid defense that was going to be hard to put points up against and get the run game going. And it's stunning. Teams that need their run game against the Philadelphia Eagles don't always necessarily get their run game against the Philadelphia Eagles. And then the Eagles are able to win football games because of it. It's crazy. It's nuts. It's almost like if the Eagles can control the clock and, not have to rely on Jalen Hurts to throw the ball 40 times a football game, they can win football games. And it's crazy. Who would have thunk it? But look, at the end of the day, the 49ers control their own destiny. Of the two matchups, three teams you have left, I feel the Niners have the easiest road with the Texans and then the Rams, a team that, in a very similar boat to the Saints owning the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Kyle Shanahan has done very well against Sean McVay during his tenure as the 49ers head coach. So you feel that's a good matchup. Plus, if the Rams are able to win next week, they pretty much lock up the NFC West crown, especially if the Cardinals lose another football game. So now you're sitting in a position where the Rams may get to Week 18 and have nothing to play for. Nothing at all. The West is locked up. Just make sure you get your guys healthy, get into the playoffs healthy, and that puts the 49ers in an even better position where they could be, not jockeying for the 5 seed at that point because they don't hold the tiebreaker of the Arizona Cardinals, but at the very minimum, just making sure that they keep that 6th spot and giving themselves a very favorable matchup in the first round.
It makes it very interesting for a couple of reasons. Number one, the Los Angeles Rams are probably going to win the NFC West now. You got the Arizona Cardinals that are going to be playing the Dallas Cowboys, and the Cowboys are jockeying for that number 1 seed. They want to get a first-round bye, and they're sitting there, really close in the battle with Green Bay and Tampa Bay. So they have a lot to play for. And what you don't have is the Los Angeles Rams going to have a lot to play for if they go ahead and clinch the NFC West next week. And that is a definite possibility. However, the other reason that it becomes very interesting is the Los Angeles Rams could play the 49ers in back-to-back weeks. And if the 49ers and Rams play in Week 18 and the Rams can sit their players, it gives them a distinct advantage to be able to play the 49ers the week after. So I think that there's going to be a lot that goes into this, a lot of, cool things that are going to be talked about, but the 49ers will have an opportunity to beat the Rams. But nothing matters unless they beat the Texans. They have to go in there and beat the Texans and take care of business. And if they do, they're going to put themselves in prime position to be able to sit there in that 6th seed. The Arizona Cardinals are more likely going to be 5 now. They've clinched a playoff spot. The top 5 spots have been clinched. The 49ers would have won against Tennessee. They would have clinched a playoff spot with a win over the Texans. That is not the case now. The 49ers are having to battle until the very end. And it's going to be an interesting thing to see who's coming up from behind them. I think the key is going to be, will New Orleans lose tonight? If New Orleans loses tonight, I feel really comfortable with the 49ers situation. And I think the 49ers are a Texans win away from really, getting this playoff thing figured out. But Alex, who is a better situation to play? Would you rather play the Rams in the first round? Would you rather play Tampa Bay? Would you want to play Dallas? Who is kind of your poison that you would like to pick to play in that first round matchup?
Because it's so hard to beat teams multiple times in a season, especially more than 2 times in a year, and I think the Niners can win in Week 18, you'd prefer not to play the Rams right away after just having seen them, right? That's a lot. Maybe not a lot to prepare for, but you're giving a lot of things away. And it's just not something necessarily that you want, the position you want to be in. I still have complete faith in Kyle Shanahan in that game, in that circumstance, but the Dallas Cowboys are still not looking like a phenomenal football team. I know they were taking care of business against Washington again very early, but this is a football team that is just not been the same since about the midway point of the season. Teams are starting to figure out that defense. Dak is struggling a little bit offensively, making his reads, getting the ball out on time. And I mean, if we're being honest, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I know this past Sunday they had themselves a nice performance, and Tom Brady had a fairly decent game against a very weak Carolina Panthers team that doesn't really know who their quarterback is. And is it Sam Bradford? Is it Cam Newton? Who really knows? But you have a situation there where – sorry, I said Sam Bradford, didn't I? Sam Darnold is who I meant to say. But even with Antonio Brown playing very well, the weapons are limited. They're injured at the running back position. They're not healthy, and there's been a recipe that if you can get after Tom Brady consistently, if you're able to do that, then you're able to have success. Well, Ant, we have one of the better defensive fronts in the league, and I still believe this. I know that O-line has played very well for Tampa Bay, but against that Saints game, Ant, they showed some weaknesses. Cam Hayward was able to eat and feast a little bit, and I think the Niners have pieces in Eric Armstead and Nick Bosa and Samson Ebukam and Jordan Willis and all of these guys that can have that same kind of success. DJ Jones, I think all these guys can have success in that kind of football game. So I think that the Niners match up well, especially with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers now being injured, with guys dealing with injuries and them not being 100% healthy. The Niners, I saw something that ESPN or someone, PFF maybe, came out with their bust grades right after the season. So banged up score for teams. And the Niners were 32nd, meaning they're the healthiest team in the NFL currently, per the grading system for a couple of these sites. Being healthy and getting hot at the right time are important and key things for playoff runs. I know the Niners just had a tough loss to the Tennessee Titans on the road, but that doesn't change what they've done over the past 8 weeks.
No, it hasn't. And I think one interesting thing to keep in mind is who will the Los Angeles Rams want to play? It could be one of the situations where a win over the 49ers means they play the 49ers in the first round of the playoffs, and a loss could mean they play the Arizona Cardinals. Could the Los Angeles Rams actually look at the situation and be like, you know what? No. We want the Cardinals. We want nothing to do with that 49ers run game. We want nothing to do with Kyle Shanahan in that, that week, the first week of wild card weekend. We want Arizona. We want Kyler. We want Cliff. We want this matchup because that is a better situation for us. And they might go all in on beating the 49ers in that situation. Alex, do you think that is something the Rams could look at and do and think, oh, wait, we're going to go after Arizona because we don't want to see Kyle Shanahan in back-to-back weeks?
I can see that. I could definitely see that, especially the way the Cardinals are playing. I mean, right, if you're a head coach, if you're looking at the NFC West and teams that you want to play right now, it's not the 49ers. Even after this loss, it's not the 49ers because the 49ers didn't necessarily play a great game and almost on a short week going across the country on Thursday Night Football, won a football game, making key mistakes and not necessarily playing an A game. You want to play the Arizona Cardinals, a team that is making mistakes and not winning football games and losing to teams like the Lions. In back-to-back weeks, you lose to the Lions, and then you drop one this Sunday in a game that, again, is extremely winnable for that football team. And there's no reason for them to lose it to the Colts, but nonetheless still lost it to the Colts. And you're at home. I saw a stat. Arizona has only 3 home wins this season, and none of the wins are impressive wins. Trey Lance at home. I think it's the Houston Texans is another one, and I forget who the other team is, but it's not an impressive football team. They have not played well at home this year, the Cardinals, and they are not playing well here down the stretch. So you got that going against you if you're the Arizona Cardinals. Not great. And if you're the Rams, you're sitting there going, not necessarily a non-healthy Kyler, potentially no J.J. Watt, maybe no D-Hop. If all of those things are going our favor and going our way, let's get ran. Let's get ran week 18. Let's make sure we got the Arizona Cardinals and let's take care of business.
Yeah, the key is the 49ers type of football play will travel very well. You got, a good run game, with good defense. That always travels well in the playoffs. However, Jimmy Garoppolo can't turn over the ball when they get into the playoffs. He just can't do it. He can't have a game like he did against the Tennessee Titans and expect the 49ers to win. He knows that. The team knows that. But what he's got to do is he's got to go in there and manage it, and people just got to understand that this 49ers football team is going to have to throw the ball more than they probably would have in 2019. They don't have Raheem Mostert. They don't have the dominant run game that they had that year. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to have to back these defensive, teams off. But the Rams, however, is a team the 49ers can still run on even when they load the box just because of how they play. You've seen Minnesota get after it a little bit. That outside zone was still working even without Dalvin Cook. So I think the Rams is still a favorable matchup for the 49ers, and I know a lot of people don't want to always hear that, but Stafford also, he's prone to make mistakes. Stafford has not won in the playoffs. That is a situation the 49ers I think would feel comfortable going into, but I haven't really seen any of these NFC teams pull away as far as like, oh wow, they're one of those teams that you don't feel like you have an opportunity to win. Now I'm not saying these aren't good football teams because they are really good football teams with good quarterbacks, but no one has distanced themselves to the point where you believe, oh, well, if we get into that matchup, we cannot win.
I don't see a game. I don't see a game in the playoffs where that's the case. I truly don't. I mean, if you watch the Saturday game, Green Bay and the Browns, if you're sitting there saying the Green Bay Packers are just this problem, no, Aaron Rodgers is a problem. Devontae Adams is a problem.
100%.
But they're a beatable football team. There isn't a team in the league that's not beatable this year. Every team in the league is beatable. No one has separated themselves. No one has asserted themselves as the cream of the crop. And that's why this year, especially of all years, you have to be looking at this going, if you can just make the playoffs, you have a chance. you have a chance, because it's all about playing quality football at the right time of the year and out executing your opponent, making less mistakes, forcing them into mistakes, forcing them into bad decisions. And any team can walk away with a Super Bowl trophy this year. This is as open of a season of football that I can remember in some time, where there's not a clear-cut team that you're looking at going, man, that team is a problem in every facet and every way. All of these teams have holes. All of these teams have issues. It's almost like, the salary cap and COVID and restricting, money and things of that nature caused a lot of problems for teams, and they had to maybe let go of some pieces that they didn't necessarily want to have to let go of. And you don't have as much depth. You don't have necessarily the strength at some positions as you typically do, and that means more parity. Crazy. Who would have thought?
Oh yeah, they definitely wanted parity, and they're getting parity in a big way. And I think that that's something that they wanted because they want more exciting football games. They wanted games that are going to come down more to the wire. They wanted playoff picture to come down more to the wire, and they're getting exactly what they wanted. This is exactly what they needed coming out of the whole COVID 2020 season. They needed to make money, and the playoffs are positioned for them to make a lot of money because they're going to have some very marquee matchups. That's one of the reasons it's important for the 49ers to be in the playoffs, not only for the 49ers, but for the NFL as well. The 49ers are a marquee name, and you can right now write a script for any one of these matchups, whether that's the 49ers versus the Rams, you got McVay versus Shanahan, you got the 49ers versus the Cowboys, rivalry renewed, 49ers versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you've got Jimmy Garoppolo versus Tom Brady. And if
Master v. Apprentice.
Oh, yeah, and if it's for some reason Green Bay and the 49ers, you know the situation. This is another one of those Aaron Rodgers versus the 49ers. And Aaron Rodgers win in the playoffs against the 49ers. He hasn't proven that he can do that consistently, whether that is Jimmy Garoppolo, Colin Kaepernick, or whoever else is at quarterback. It just doesn't seem like something he does very well. So it writes its own script. This is all going to get very interesting very quickly. But the 49ers will not do anything. And I've said this for a while now. We talked about the mediocre middle class of the NFC. And I thought the 49ers were really pushing themselves to that upper echelon of teams, which is those 5 teams that have already clinched the playoffs. I do believe they're sitting there right behind them. I think where they're at right now is been equivalent of their play over the totality of the season. I believe they have trended their way into that top 5 talk. I think they should be right there with Arizona the way Arizona is playing right now. But they're going over the next 2 weeks. They have to prove that they're one of those top, 6 teams that they can prove that they can jump into that top 5 area. And if Jimmy Garoppolo cannot turn the ball over, this 49ers can play timely defense, and this defensive pass rush can close football games, I think that they can definitely do some damage in the playoffs. But if they cannot, it could be a quick exit as well, because a performance like we just got from Jimmy Garoppolo in the Tennessee Titans game will not win playoff games. The 49ers will get bounced quickly because there's no margin for error. This isn't some of the teams where you had tremendous players on the outside that can make up for some of the absence. Yes, you do have weapons, but there are no margins for error when it comes to this 49ers team.
Zero. And some people are like, well, why is that? What's the reasoning behind it? It's some of it's injury, right? Losing Raheem Mostert, losing Jason Verrett. All of those things have a huge impact on this team because, listen, you can have margin for error when you have a guy like Raheem Mostert who can take any carry and bust it to the house, right? I mean, we have seen tons of opportunities on all 22 film where Elijah Mitchell is doing his job and getting through his hole and getting vertical, and we're like, if that's Raheem Mostert, he's putting his foot in the ground, he's selling up the field, everyone's going, and then he's going to bounce and it's gone. Like it's gone. It's just different. His understanding of the system is different than Elijah Mitchell's. His speed is different than Elijah Mitchell's. The way he runs right now at this moment compared to Elijah Mitchell's is different. It's different. So when you have that in the backfield, that changes everything. You can make some mistakes offensively. You can have some drives where you stall out because Raheem Mostert and a couple of runs that are nice runs right now are going to be touchdowns, if not, red zone opportunity runs, down the line. So Raheem Mostert makes the margin of error a little bit wider. Jason Verrett makes the margin of error a lot wider as well on the other side, because you can do different things with your coverages, things of that nature. If Emmanuel Mosley's healthy, margin of error widens a little bit as well. So when you're missing key pieces in certain positions, the margin of error shifts, it changes. Not having Mike McGlinchey at times shifts the margin of error, but Tom Compton has really lessened that damage and that impact of not having Mike McGlinchey out on the football field. Listen, I get it. I get why fans are frustrated with the whole margin of error conversation. I've seen a lot of people talk about this, but at the end of the day, right, there's only certain things you can control. The thing that the Niners can control is their own mistakes and their own hiccups, right? You limit those. You don't shoot yourself in the foot. Jimmy, don't make timely and costly turnovers for the 49ers. and you're going to have a situation here where you're going to be okay. You're going to be able to get this right, the ship, and you're going to be able to put up 30-plus points a game. Your defense is going to be able to hold teams to 20 points a game, and you're going to be able to comfortably sit in wonderful positions where you have, 2-possession games.
Yeah, we're going to get a really good idea of how the 49ers are going to respond against Houston Texans. If they come out and they play bully ball right away and they get after it, and you see that aggressiveness pick up to another level, and this team gets out there and gets, excited and handles the Houston Texans in a big way, then I'm going to start feeling good about the opportunity for the 49ers in the playoffs. If they come in there and they allow this to be a close game, they allow the Texans to hang in there, then no, I'm going to be somewhat concerned about the playoff potentiality for the 49ers, because this team needs to go assert themselves now. They need to respond in a big way from this loss. They need to go out there and be fired up and go out there and get it done. And I think that they have competitors on that team. I believe they have dogs. That's been a conversation all year long about dogs. Deebo Samuel was an absolute dog at the end of that Tennessee Titans game. You could see the look in his face when he was making plays. He was not going to go quietly into the night. He was going to let everyone know this 49ers team is not going anywhere. And I think they got to respond in a big way, and they got to respond with a lot of passion, a lot of grit, and get after this Texans team and leave no doubt who the better football team is, because they got to win this one, because you don't want that game against the Rams to be your entire season all built up into one Week 18 matchup.
No, right. If you handle your business, then you put the onus on everyone else behind you to take care of theirs. So if you're the 49ers, handle your own, and if you do that, the pressure shifts off of you to everyone else, and that's all you can do, right? All you can do is now win and put the onus on everyone else to do the same. And if they don't answer the call, they don't, answer the bell ant as it's tolling, then you're fine. You're going to get into the playoffs. You're going to put yourself in a great position. You've been playing great football the second half of the season, which means you should be able to replicate it, fix even some of the minor errors that we've seen from this team, and get to a whole nother level. And if they can do that at the right time, you're looking at a situation where this team could be very dangerous and very deadly. And it's already a team that a lot of coaches don't want to have to deal with. But look, Cutback crew, we know you're hurting. We get that. We hope you had a wonderful Christmas, though, and let us know about all these topics right here. Which things are driving you crazy? Right? Which things are you looking at going, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe A.J. Brown said that about Jimmie Ward, and the slamming was all good. I can't believe PFF is doing PFF things. And, how do you feel about the playoffs? Do you feel the Niners are in the driver's seat and control their own destiny, or are you in the opposite boat? This team blew it this last week against the Tennessee Titans, and now we'll be lucky to make it. We want to hear from you in the comment section down below, and let's have this conversation. So make sure you're commenting away.
Yeah, let us know how you feel. If you feel we're not being hard enough on Jimmy Garoppolo, that seems to be something that people are saying. Go ahead and let us know why we're not being hard enough on him, and why we feel that he was the big reason the 49ers lost, but somehow we're still not being hard enough on him. Let us know. And I think that I'm curious to see what everyone's opinion is on the 49ers playoff hunt, if they believe that the 49ers versus the Rams is a better matchup, or if they would like to see the 49ers play someone else. Are you worried about the 49ers playing back-to-back games against the Rams, potentially Week 18 in the wild card round? I'm curious what everyone thinks.
Absolutely. We want to hear from you, Cutback crew, so make sure you're letting us know. Let's have these conversations. It's going to be a little bit of an interesting week. Big yikes, is going to get pushed towards the end of the week once I'm closer to being back in the States and back with my boy there in studio. So we'll wait till we're a little bit closer to get that big yikes out to you, but there's still going to be lots of content coming your way all week long. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you like the video right now. Hit that notification bell so that way you don't miss out on any of the daily content that we got coming your way, all the fun stuff we have basically in store leading up to this big, huge game against the Texans with even bigger implications than we all hoped for and wanted for. But, hey, it is what it is, Cutback crew. All we can do is turn our attention to the next one, and that's what we're all doing here. That's what this team is doing. So until the next time, you stay safe.
And remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.